Welcome to our Zoom meeting. Can you guys hear me okay? Thumbs up? All right, so we are going to,
who's not muted?
Kel Rowan.
Gail, you're loud.
George Steele.
Amber Finley.
All right, so we're gonna go through this, and if you guys could let us know what your steps forward will be, that would be greatly helpful. And that way we'll all know where we are and we'll be on the same page. Oh, I guess we should go around the room for introductions real quick. This is weird. Okay.
Kevin Shooty. Dave Windom. Dean McCallum.
Randy Netherland.
Sharon Trask, and then on the screen we have George Steele, Travis Adams, and others. Frank, Peter, Amber, Lisa, Jim, Patty McGuire, Patsy, looks like the prosecutor, Dan, the coroner, Wes, Loretta looks like Public Works, Sharon, are you clerk? Sharon Fogel?
She's muted. Sharon, are you, okay, just wanted to see, is that Sharon Fogo?
Yes.
All right, we're going to start with the public defender's office. So Peter, could you tell us what your plans are going forward at this stage anyway?
So at this stage in the game, I've encouraged, not requiring my attorneys to do work from home, but I've encouraged it. They all have their tablets and are capable of doing so. Almost all court appearances are currently being done via Zoom, and the tablets are capable of handling that. So that seems to be working out. The office is available for them to use, and they can certainly schedule meetings with clients, but we're trying to limit the public's access. Other than a scheduled meeting with a client, we're not leaving the doors open. We do have 2 staff members that are in the office. They're still doing the filing and sorting the paperwork, but given the narrow hallways in the public defender's office, it's much, much better for them to not have a bunch of attorneys clogging the way. As we move forward, it's my intent that as we get into phase 2, phase 3, that we slowly bring the attorneys back into the office and start opening the office up, at least for limited hours or limited times. We did get a sneeze guard installed. Thank you, Kelly. Helps at the front desk. I can't tell if someone's asking a question or not. There's George in the background.
Hey, excuse me, hold on, Peter. Judge Steele, your mic keeps coming on. Could you please mute?
And then when we call you, please open your mic then. Thank you.
Don's is also.
We're done.
We're done.
Oh, we're done.
Never mind, Don.
So, yeah, that one I need. Anyways, so right now, the attorneys are on essentially a work from home status with their tablets, and the office is not open to the public. And as we progress through the phases, the idea is to start opening that back up and start getting the attorneys back into the office. But as of right now, I'm encouraging them to work from home. I'm not requiring them. So that's what the public defender's office is.
All right, great. Thank you.
And with your permission, I'll log off of this and log on to the other Zoom where I think Judge Goodell is expecting me.
All right, that works.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to the sheriff's office.
Good morning, Commissioner. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Our jail is still on the restrictions that we have, which is in compliance with the rest of the jails in the state of Washington. Chief Hansen has got all the precautions in there that we've always had and will continue with. And our jail booking restrictions are still on, of course. And we do have a litter crew that is going out now. Our staff is back in to the offices. Our civil division, our staff is back. We're limiting our front office to 1 person at a time coming into the front. and taking all the precautions, the standard precautions that we take. But everybody is back here and moving along. Our patrol division has continued to stay the same ever since it started. Nothing's changed there.
Oh, great. Thank you, and we did receive an update from Tammy, so much appreciated, thank you. All right, let's move on to Superior Court. Judge Finley?
Morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good to see you guys too. This is weird. I don't like looking at myself when I'm talking. But I tell you that Superior Court is doing all of its hearings currently by using Zoom. We purchased 3 Zoom accounts. We have, we're able to do it because we have a fantastic staff. As you know, the meeting has to be hosted, and that is done by one of our staff members, who then stays on the line with us while we do the entire calendar. She does that, so they do that, so they can help us with getting the names listed instead of phone numbers. And also, we have to monitor because we use, for example, one Zoom meeting could blend into another one, and so we trying to keep timely with that, and our staff has been very helpful in doing that. We are all separated. As you can see behind me, I'm in a room with nothing. And I have essentially one other person who's in another room where I am. And so I end up each day maybe seeing 1 or 2 people at most. Currently, we are trying to move towards using, we think, we'll be able to use the courtrooms in June or July. As you know, we are guided by what the Supreme Court of Washington tells us to do. And we have had a few orders, and the last one has talked about being able to do in-person hearings, provided you have all the health department requirements in place, including the social distancing. So we have talked with, I know that Ms. Loughlin has spoken with people regarding putting up some more plexiglass, perhaps in our courtroom, so the judge is separated from people, and also from the witness as well as from the clerk. In at least one of our courtrooms, there is not enough distance between the clerk and the judge. The public has been very receptive to this. They have called in. We have not had issues. We are working with trying to be able to do, as I said, in-person hearings, hopefully within the next month or 2. Supreme Court said that jury trials could start in July. So we've been meeting with other people regarding that to see if we can set up the ability to do a jury trial in July, July-ish, that's what I would say at this point. And it's very detailed. We need to make sure that the public is safe. We need to make sure that the staff remains safe. You should know that when I say that we've been up and running, we have been running since this started. And that includes the therapy courts. They're doing their meetings with people by video or by telephone. The hearings are done by Zoom, by our commissioner. And our facilitator has been very active. She gets lots of calls, and we've been doing many matters that she has helped set up. And her information is still on the website. So it's a lot. It really is a lot. It's challenging, but like I said, I'm very grateful. We wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for the great staff I have.
Right.
And the support, so thank you.
You're welcome.
One more thing, I'm sorry. We are needing, if we're going to move forward, one of the things we're going to need is masks. So that is something we definitely need to make sure that we have.
Right. I spoke to Judge Goodell last week and sent a message on to the governor's office to see what their suggestions are to move forward on that one. So I'll let you guys know when I hear something back from them.
Thank you. Like I said, we appreciate the support we've gotten, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any questions?
Dave, do you have any thoughts on?
I did interrupt there 1 second. I have ordered the plexiglass for all the courtrooms. They're actually picking it up now, and I should have it installed by the end of the week.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
You're the best, Kelly. Any questions
I was just going to see if Dave had any comments on masks.
for the PPE?
Well, the way it works through Instant Command is we supply Tier 1 first. So for incident command, we supply tier 1 first, and that's EMS, hospitals, first line providers. It does not extend down into the county. So county offices will have to find their own sources of masks.
All right, so I'll let you know when I hear back from the governor's office as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, district court. Judge Still?
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Wow.
What I can tell everybody is we have stayed open through this thing from 8 to 5 until last week, beginning of last week. We had split our staff into 2 shifts. So that one, it works out, they essentially alternate the days when they'd be here, so we don't want to be half people here at any given time. But that's changed since the Supreme Court has loosened it up a little bit because we have more going on. The public access is still 8:30 to 4:30, although we are controlling the number of people that can come in to that area with security and what have you, to come up to the counter. So people can and always have been able to come in and pay fines, file orders of protection. Other court visits, any other court visits cannot be done by email or U.S. mail. Court hearings for most of this time have been fairly restricted, but we have been using Zoom to start bringing those up again. And one change, which I'm grateful for, with the Supreme Court, is they authorize, at least on an emergency basis, certain cases that can be heard instead of having to wait for the arraignments to be 45 days after charging. So we are hearing next judicial day, DUI charges. We're hearing domestic violence and violations and court orders, protection orders, things along those lines are heard at 10 a.m. unless you're in custody. In which case we normally hear those at 11:30. We have made use of Zoom, and we have it set up on our website that anybody who wishes to listen in, in other words, keep the meetings as open as possible, can join in. Thus far, I would tell you we've had a grand whopping total of 1 person actually want to spend their time watching court. But it is there, and the law says to the extent we can, we have to have it. For in-person court hearings, when we do have them, security is only allowing the person to come down with an attorney. If for some reason they're under 18, and there's a few cases where someone between 16 and 18 can go to district court, they can go down with a parent as well. So at this point, we're doing everything somewhat, with the exception of jury trials. We're not going to be doing any jury trials before July 6th, and I'm not prepared to think that it's going to be opened up to start doing jury trials at that time. It might be, but I'm not convinced that's going to happen at this point. We do need to get ready for it. I'm anticipating there'll be further extensions, but I have been wrong before, so we'll see what happens. Mitigation contested hearings are being held by Zoom. We do have courtrooms, and we are only running 1 courtroom, so we don't have to have 2 courtrooms to keep wiped down and sanitized. And right now, Judge Breer is handling the protection order calendar, and I moved the mitigation contested, so this afternoon we don't have much going on this afternoon anyway. Zoom works out fairly well for a lot of hearings, so regular pre-trials, mitigation hearings, things along those lines. It's not so good when there's what I'll call serious litigation with lots of witnesses or lots of exhibits. And we're having some issues, particularly with cases where people are pretty much pro se, which means they're not represented, not really following what we're asking them to do, which is send the identical set to the other side of the exhibit so we can know which exhibits we're talking about and what have you. But we're working on it. We are anticipating that when this does get lifted, our calendars are going to become very large, and we'll require the 2 courts. Jury trials, we're gonna have some issues. We have reduced the seating in LO1, which is our main courtroom, from about 40 to about 6, to keep them far enough apart and limiting the number of people that can be there. And to select a jury, one of the things we have to be able to do is have a jury panel there so that I can ask, general questions, they can be asked questions and what have you. And how we're going to resolve that is a work in progress. I have made at least some inquiries to see if possibly we could utilize City Hall for that. That may or may not happen. We are letting municipal court use our courtroom in the afternoon for in custody cases because their video is not working because of the demand on their internet connections with all the people who are working via internet now. So those are going to be challenges for us. And one area that we still need to work on, and I've had objection there, a reasonable objection, is the interpreter calendars. We need to have a means for the interpreters to be able to be present so the attorneys and clients can have communications with them. And they have to be confidential communications. So right now, last week I had the interpreter cases come in with the idea that unless there was a settlement right then and there, they were ready to present, it was going to be reset till after June 1st. And that's what happened to most of them, because we don't really know what's going to be happening via June 1st. So that, in a nutshell, the nutshell of my ramblings is what we're doing down here. It's a challenge, we're hanging in there. I want to echo what Judge Finley said about her staff. I say the same thing about mine. They're all digging in and getting the job done under what are not the easiest circumstances, and I do appreciate it.
Great, thank you. I think we all have we're a great team, I think, at Mason County. So thank your employees for us too.
I will do so.
Okay, any questions? No. All right.
Then I will mute myself, but people would prefer I do more often.
No comment. Plead the fifth.
We will mute ourselves.
All right, how about the prosecutor's office?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me okay? I'm trying not to get on Tim's back.
Just don't sit on his lap, we're good.
He's always on my back.
So I guess I'll just run through real quick, I'll try to be real quick. We have, from about the 23rd or 4th of March, whenever it was that, what day was that, Tim? We were on for most of the office on a rotating schedule to try to keep the concentration in the building down and the concentration on the roads down, with attorneys being able to work from home and staff being basically on call during those days that they're not here. We've all since come back in the building and that's with the exception of Tim and Darcy and I have pretty much been here every day. In many ways, with these different slowdowns, it's somehow been, I think, probably the busiest that we've been in 10 years, it feels like. But we're back in the building. Pretty much everybody's workstation is isolated and with some level of separation from everybody else. We do our best to maintain social distance. Our office is still open from 8 to 5. We've limited staff use, prosecutor staff use of the lobby, the regular front door and the public lobby. So we're all using, with very few exception, the employee-only door, leaving the lobby area for the public to come in. We've got a place for them to drop papers off where we can later gather them and scan them and then box them until later. And then we wipe down all the surfaces after somebody from the public came in, and we regularly wipe down the building. But other than that, other than learning how to do things differently, court's been by Zoom. All of our internal staff meetings have been by Zoom or otherwise electronic. We've got people periodically at least attorneys able to work from home. Staff really needs to be able to have access to the county network, and there are very few VPN licenses, so they don't really have that ability, but all of our cases are securely maintained on a web accessed software that the attorneys can use from home. And so we continue to manage, doing our best to not really interrupt services, but learn how to do things in new ways and keep staff and the public as protected as we can.
All right, great. Yeah, I think it's a learning process for
Yeah.
all of us. Any questions? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the assessor. I see you in the background there. Hi, Lisa.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Well, our computers have been on the fritz since the 30th on tax day, and IT's been trying to work to rebuild a few of our computers. But basically, since the shutdown, we sent staff home the first 2 weeks, and Vicki and I and Russ were here with one other appraiser and one other clerical would pop in and catch up her stuff. So now after the 7th, everybody was back every other day until the 4th of this month. So all of our staff is back. There's 13 in the office. Appraisers go out in the morning. I got them coming in at 7, so they're supposed to be gone by 8. But everybody's got a wall between them. The front counter has the new plexiglass along with they're over 6 feet apart. We're just trying to wipe things down a lot, and we're not open to the public yet. So we're still doing, when they call down front, we run down front and meet the taxpayers if needed. Otherwise, it's been through email, mail, phone. And it's been, the first 2 weeks when we were shut down, it was extremely busy. So yeah, it was kind of crazy, but with Vicki and Russ, we got it done. So we're hanging in there. So I don't know when we'll open to the public. We got to talk with Lisa and the other Patty.
Right.
So, but yeah, the appraisers are still going out in the field. They're not supposed to make contact with the taxpayers. I mean, if they come out, they just tell them why they're there. I mean, they should know why they're there. Mm-hmm. And they said everybody's been pretty respectful, and they're fine with them so far. They haven't got yelled at by anybody. No. So far so good. We're rolling along. We're getting the revals over almost 70% done. So I don't see we're not really falling behind. So hopefully we'll be on track.
Great.
To be done earlier than last year.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, any questions? No. All right, Lisa, since you're in the frame, how about going for it?
Sure. So all of my staff is back. Obviously, when this all started, we split the staff and we're working from home or on leave and splitting our time. They're all back with the exception of one who is still telecommuting 3 days a week. But she's coming in every Tuesday and Thursday. So that's where we are. We're open for phones between 8 and 4:30. We're answering the phones. We're available by appointment for those that come into the lobby downstairs and call up. This all happened during tax time, so obviously we were extremely busy. And we had a lot of taxpayers that were upset that they couldn't come pay in person, but we managed to get them to drop them in the drop box or mail them. So we're all in the office. We're catching up on all the things that didn't get done while we were processing property tax statements. And those are done. The drop box is still open downstairs, and we're still asking taxpayers to use that as much as possible. I think our issues moving forward, my staff is all mostly 6 feet apart. We've installed plexiglass. We're wiping everything down. We're practicing our social distancing as much as possible when we're in the hallways. Our concerns about opening obviously depend on when the county opens the building to the public, for one thing, and then how do we get this, customers from downstairs upstairs without overwhelming our small area. Facilities has been awesome in getting us some signs and some ropes and roping stuff up and making sure, but we still have an issue with how we're going to get those downstairs upstairs without overcrowding. So that's kind of where we are and when we will open back to the public.
Right, I think government is in phase 3,
Right,
so we have a few more phases to go.
exactly, exactly. But we're managing, our phones are ringing off the hook. We had a snafu with the postal service. They sent, I don't know, probably a couple thousand tax papers back to the customers. saying
I heard it over and over and over again.
So we had to deal with that on top of everything else. So we are still getting some tax payments in that are being returned to us a second time. But we are processing them as they come in. But the bulk of the mail is done and we'll go on to other things, so.
Great. All right, any questions?
I got a comment, something for us to think about. I understand you are of all people in the middle of everything up there on the top. When somebody comes through, they're coming through your area to go to either one of the directions. I'm wondering if we couldn't consider temporarily having some type of provision for some of your work to be done right here in our lobby, where we have a section that could be plexiglassed off a little bit, and there's room to work in there right here in the front. Just not saying to do it, just something to consider that we all could talk about if it becomes necessary.
And I think that maybe as the phases progress, we'll get more guidance too from the state.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. Until we're open to the public, it's really hard to know how much traffic we'll get. I mean, obviously now that tax time's over, it's gonna be slower in our office. We're still doing almost all of our real estate transactions online via simple files, so we're not having the title companies come in daily. It's mostly those individuals that are doing their own transactions that want to come in, and we're making appointments for them. And we have to coordinate that obviously with the auditor's office and their recording. So we're all three offices working very closely together to manage this. But it is going to be difficult, I think, at some point in time. But again, maintenance has done a really good job of giving us some space just for the treasurer's office up here. So if you get a chance, wander up, take a look.
I have, and it looks great. Well, and since we're on the top floor, Patty, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, everybody. To sort of follow on to what Lisa said, I've got a call this afternoon with a company that sells an electronic queue system. So the idea would be we put it possibly in the vestibule, and to come in, you'd say, I'm going to the assessor's office, and you'd get, A27, and there'd be a screen that says now serving A24. And so the idea would be to keep people downstairs, or even better yet, outside, rather than lining up on the stairs where distancing is impossible. And we just have a bunch of choke points upstairs that there's just no getting around. And this clearly was not, the upstairs of this building was clearly not designed with communicable diseases in mind. So here we are. Sort of the same story for us. We're all back on a regular schedule. We are, the phones are going crazy. One of the unintended consequences for us is our postage budget is being completely busted because it's everybody who would come to the counter to get their tabs renewed, we're now mailing those out. The people who are doing those online, we're mailing those out. And so there's postage on every single one of those, which in the past would have been free. It's not anymore. So that's something we're wrestling with. We are accounting for that separately as an additional cost related to COVID, but obviously that's going to be part of our budget, and we're just going to have to wrestle with and keep an eye on. And I don't know what the solution is other than paying the postage. This week is one of our busy weeks. It's candidate filing week. Commissioners, Superior Court judges, a little gentle reminder that you need to file this week. We are encouraging people to do that online. is right there. If people don't want to file online, call us and we'll walk you through the paperwork and then have you drop the paperwork in the Dropbox or in the election Dropbox out front. That's how we're doing it. That's really it for me. You know, we are, this week is one of our busy weeks, and then, you know, it's going to be voting season soon, and the vote renewals are all June 30th, and so that's a very busy time for us. So, you know, that's on the horizon. And, you know, I would guess that we are going to be close to the public, and so, you know, my postage budget is going to be busted even further, but there you go.
I know you've been awful busy. Question? All right, thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
Sharon?
Go ahead.
Oh.
Oh, I thought you said sheriff, sorry.
How about the clerk? Sharon?
Maybe she stepped out. We'll come back.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Sharon,
If you can hear me.
if you're there. That's right.
Hello,
Oh, there
can you
she
hear
is.
me now?
There you are.
Okay, I'm on the phone because I don't have a microphone or
Oh.
camera on my computer, so sorry about that.
No worries.
So we've been closed to the public until today. Today's our first day of reopening for 2 hours. We're open 9 to 11. We are still not processing passport applications, and pretty much if you go to the travel.state.gov site, they're not processing passport applications except for emergency situations. So we've been working really closely with Superior Court and I have individuals that are self-isolating in courtrooms, as like Judge Finley was talking about, that they are just staying in those courtrooms, so because they're more susceptible. So trying to keep them safer. And we have a box out in front of security in the lobby area of the vestibule of the courthouse that people can drop off their documents. And I've also been allowing, per the Supreme Court's order, that they can file electronically, and we've been using our own resources with copy paper to print out documents that people email us. And we've also been accepting filings by fax. So those are the steps that we've taken to try and keep people out of the courthouse. Thanks to Kelly and the maintenance department for getting the plexiglass up in our office. We really appreciate that. So we can go ahead and open our doors. We've got markers on the floor so they can social distance. We've got 2 stations open. So my plan kind of is to maintain just a couple hours a day until probably the end of this month, and then in the next phase of the governor's suggested the rules of maintaining the closure and keeping it that way until we hear further words either from the Supreme Court or from the governor. So I think that's about it.
Well, great. Yeah, we got a copy of your plan also. Wanted to thank you for that too. Yeah, Kelly's doing a great job. Kudos to Kelly and his crew.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Any questions? All right. How about Wes?
Good morning, can you hear me?
Good morning, yes.
Hi. For the coroner's office, pretty much we've not been too much affected by this situation. It's normal operations for us. Takeout only, of course. Can't see me smiling, I know.
You can't see us shaking our head going, he did.
We've had about 60 responses during the February through May 11th timeframe. Most are natural deaths. Heart disease is the #1 killer and still continues to has run its course pretty much everywhere. We have had 8 suicides during this period of time. I was asked whether or not the suicides were related in any way to pandemic, and really after going over each case, I don't see any relationship at all to the pandemic. We're right about average for what we would be during a normal year, if you can call it a normal year for suicide. So don't see that that's been an impact in the county. The PPEs, I had plenty of PPEs. We always exercise universal precautions in the office. We go to a lot of situations where you need to suit up in a Tyvek suit. We always wear gloves. We have masks, booties, everything available to us. Believe it or not, we even carry flea spray in the van because you would not believe the flea situations we go into from time to time in homes and things. So we are well prepared. And I was actually able to donate some of our equipment to the sheriff's office and public health when this all started. I heard Amber say that she needs masks, and Dave Windom, you might want to have something to say about this. I was given quite a big box of masks by Don Twitty the other day. I don't know where they came from, but I don't need them, and I'd be more than happy to donate them if that's possible to Amber's office or any other office that needs them, but I do not need them.
Is that what they're using forever?
It would be for the jury.
Did you hear me okay, Amber,
Yeah.
on that?
I did, thank you, because that would be great, because what we need the masks for would be the public, so when they come in, we would need people to be wearing them, so.
Yeah,
That's possible.
go ahead. So
That's
I
fine
think,
with me.
yeah, the only problem with that is it could be considered gifting of funds. And so that's why I'm asking the governor's office for clarification to see if we can.
Do those come from DEM?
The
You know?
The
No.
PPE,
No, HR bought some for staff. That was
right, HR bought them.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have
Yeah.
some at DEM.
Okay, well, HR, I don't need them, so whatever you would like done with them, that's fine with me. I'll bring them back.
All right, thanks, Wes. And, honestly, I'm really glad that we've not needed your services during this time. Anything above normal.
Same here. I also wanted to add that we have tested a few people, decedents, for COVID, and all came back negative. And the only case that occurred in Mason County, as you know, died in Kitsap County, actually, so my office was not involved.
Right, we sure appreciate you, Wes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Dave.
Okay, so I'm going to turn the first part of this over to Kel. So Kel, are you out there for building and planning?
I am, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so we are closed to the public. We did reopen by appointment for submittals last Tuesday, so the 5th. And the week prior to that, we sent our inspectors out our building inspectors out into the field for the construction sites that are back underway. We have a lot of people teleworking and then popping in as necessary to, use the copier and things like that, picking up permits and dropping them off. But we do have several of us that are working full-time back in the building now. I think there's 6 or 7 of us. So about a third. So we're trying to keep the, just the staff levels down here. So we're all separated and then having people cycle through. So we have 1 planner required to be here each day for dilemma day. We're answering the phone, so our phones are being answered again as of last week. That's 8 to 4:30. We have a sign out front for folks who have submittal appointments and they're able to come in and knock on our door and get service. And then folks who don't have an appointment, they're able to just tear a number, get our email and phone number so they can contact us and get that appointment made. The planners are also doing site pre-inspections out in the field, and we have started our code enforcement activity back up as far as getting out into the field. So I think that covers it.
Question? No? All right, thanks, Kel.
So, and then on the public health side, of course, public health has been running full tilt since this whole thing started. We have added a part-time person in public health to work on tracing, tracking, and that person's also done a crackerjack job with some housing issues we've been working on since the very beginning. We continue to track all cases within 24 hours, so we not only do we get onto them, but we try to have them complete within 24 hours. Working with Dr. Stein and the Board of Health later this morning to push our request for variance up. And we're still doing birth and death certificates at the front counter. People are still bringing in their engineer plans for septic systems, so all that work is continuing to go. Our food inspector is still out there working with restaurants every day. And our on-site septic folks are out in the field as well. So they're doing their things in some ways because the case count is kind of has drifted down. Some of our folks are going back into their grant-funded work and picking those programs back up, so we're back into working our grants. So we're good there. We continue to look for money that would go to the COVID response. We have a consolidated contract agreement that's going to pay for $119,000 in state funds, and then the rest would be federal funds. So we're working that through to help pay for our expenses of public health.
Great. I know you guys have been busy. Dennis,
Yes, we have.
Yeah, appreciate your people too.
Mm-hmm. You got a great team.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, any questions? No? All right. How about Public Works, Loretta?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, had to unmute there. And I've got also Deputy Director Richard Dickinson here. And Mike Collins is out in the field taking a look at a slide repair. So otherwise Mike would be here as well. We are back to full service and everybody back in the office for the most part. We have maybe a handful of folks that are teleworking, not the full week, but maybe 1 or 2 days or so. The office remains closed to the public, except for by appointment, although occasionally we've had a person or two wander up to the front desk and Amy will buzz them in and we assist. I do want to thank Facilities for installing our utility payment box outside and our plexiglass. That's been great in helping us remain open and being able to serve the public. I also want to give a shout out to our finance, HR, and IT folks because they've really worked hard to support not only our department, but other departments in being able to deal with teleworking and providing or continuing services throughout this process. And cannot emphasize enough the hard work that those folks have been providing. So let's see, what else? I would also like to say that we've got 2 cubicles here in the office and also our large meeting room. I'm not sure if that could be useful to anyone in just an interim basis, but there's adequate space and separation, and so if there is a need from another department to put that space to use, please let us know. And let's see, Richard, do you want to just give a quickie highlight of our transfer station?
Transfer station, let's see, hours are still the same. We haven't slowed down a bit there. PPE use it's customary for us anyway. Of course, we've had our spit shields, plexiglass spit shields installed. We did have one get broken, but not that as an accident, and it has been replaced. Anything else I can't really think about that. We really have had no slowdown whatsoever, and I'm expecting commercial loads to start coming in more frequently and have that replace the residential, which has been off the charts. Right. And it's petering off over the last week, so right. It'll be nice to have the commercial loads start coming in again.
I think people have been doing a lot of spring cleaning.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah. And we were excited to hear that the litter crew is back at it as well. That will be helpful.
Yes, yes, it will. All right, thank you. Any questions for Loretta? No? All right, Dan, WSU.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
WSU Extension has a county employee as well, so she's been in the office by herself, not open to the public, but maintaining our operations. Weed wrenches have been going off the shelf. People are checking them out and cleaning up their property, just like you are getting litter cleaned up. They're also mitigating noxious weeds as well, which is wonderful. WSU employees need to follow WSU orders, which are stay at home until May 31st until we hear differently from the governor's office. So we've been operating at a distance. All online classes and our Master Gardener programs, our 4-H volunteers, all of that work is being done virtually. We're using Zoom for that significantly. A lot of our educational offerings that were face-to-face have gone virtual. Our plant sale is being worked on with the Master Gardeners to be announced relatively soon what the plan is for that. Summer camp programs have been canceled and moved to a virtual presence. Once we do get the word that we can go back to the office, we do have enough space to manage that effectively with the social distancing requirements, masks and all that type of thing as well. It's been relatively busy, surprisingly, with the online platform that we were able to move towards lots of plant identification requests, insect requests, and things like that. And our Not Just Weed program is actually out in the field mitigating plants as well.
Great, what a new adventure, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Jim.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So for us, it's been somewhat business as usual. Our lobby on the probation side is closed, but we still are doing appointments as needed with individual kids, families. Just depends on what the case needs. Because we're still supervising these kids that are out there. If we have any type of violations or anything that's going on, we're using the Zoom meetings and the court system. So some of the stuff we're dealing with as it happens, and some stuff that's being set out until we can actually have court hearings. And so we're just kind of learning as we go with that. Our office here, we've got enough space where staff have been able to be separated. We've got some staff that work from home from time to time, depending on if they need to write reports, that kind of stuff. But it's not any kind of set schedule. It's just as needed. But I'd say for the most part, most of us are here on a regular basis. We do have somebody on a modified work schedule, working 410s. And so what I see moving forward is, when the lobby does open up, like everybody else has said, a big thank you to facilities for getting some plexiglass up and some markers on the floor, and we'll be practicing the social distancing. But until then, we'll still just be working the cases like we normally work. Detention, we've been pretty much operating as normal over there. Probably the same as the jail. We've got to be prepped and ready to deal with not only COVID-19, but Hep A, B, C, AIDS. Anything can be going on 365 over there, and so our staff, have to be protecting themselves and protecting others in there anyways. And so, really, the change has been is that school for a little while was not happening as the school district was kind of getting their ducks in a row, and so now we've got Zoom classes happening for the kids over there. Teacher is able to come in, I believe, once a week just to get some face-to-face time. And so that's a little bit of a change of practice. Certainly all of our hearings are happening via Zoom, which actually has been pretty cool. Not having to take a kid and walk them outside, potentially in the weather, parading them around in an orange jumpsuit in front of the community, walking over to the courthouse. We have had some issues of kids, buddies and friends and family members would be outside, hooting and hollering at them as they're going into court. We're kind of, not having to deal with that, which is a good thing. And so I think it's going to be interesting coming out of this to see what processes maybe can continue that we've been able to use while this is going on. The only other minor change that we have is, we historically have done what we call a book and release for misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors, other than DVs. Any domestic violence, we hold those kids, but other than that, those misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors, we would do what we call as a book and release. So the kid would be there, get printed, get them into the system, and then we start having contact with family to have them come pick them up, and then we would schedule the court date out in the future. And to limit the amount of kids coming in and contact with our staff contact with them, and then certainly, sheriff and police, having to run them down to our facility. We're just doing those all administratively now. That'll be something that we might go back to that practice as things kind of open up. But at this point, our book and releases are all done administratively, so law enforcement can stay out in the field, just file their report through the normal processes and have the court happen without that kid having to come to detention. But for the rest of the cases, all the felonies, that kind of stuff, we're just business as usual and practicing our distancing there in the facility itself. So that's pretty much what we're doing. So I don't know if you guys have any questions on that.
Question? No? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Frank?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Let me start off by letting everybody know I'm still teleworking. The Commissioner's administrative support staff, including the switchboard, continue to provide full in-person service, except that we're closed to the public. The hours are between 8 and 5 Monday to Friday. HR. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, we were just hearing some music in the background.
Uh-oh. HR has regular hours between 8 and 5. They're closed to the public except by, they are open to staff for appointments. Facilities had no change from prior or before COVID. And they have an outside contractor going around the county, wiping down public access areas. IT, all staff are back to normal. DEM has been working full force since the start of the pandemic. Parks, the bathrooms remain closed. Parks, however, are open, parks and trails. Playgrounds, toys remain closed. Picnic shelters remain closed. The baseball fields remain closed. And there are no team sports allowed in parks. Fishing is approved but limited to family members in a boat. Non-family fishing is limited to 2 persons with social distancing. And hunting for wild turkey and spring black bear is with permit and license only.
I know where to go hunt for wild turkey.
And that's about it.
Any questions? we're just laughing about the wild turkey.
That's how it was written.
That'll work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Jack Daniels sees it.
Great.
As Patty McGuire takes a swig of something like that.
Patty, did you catch a wild turkey?
Yeah.
All right, do we have any questions? Did I leave anyone out?
I have a question for Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, can you hear me? Tim Whitehead? I'm sorry, that's just funny. Hey,
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah, we can hear you.
you know, currently we provide hand sanitizer, toilet paper, paper towels, flyers, mailers, and even paper forms to people that are in color that could be at least 10 cents to 50 cents a piece. That's not considered a gifting of funds. Is there a baseline that of value where that begins to be an issue?
No, there's no baseline of value, and I don't really see anything that I've heard today. I don't see an issue with gifting of public funds. I certainly can see that there's consideration that the county's getting by giving these out, which is safety, and all the roads that leads down. And it sounds like we're buying those things and giving them to the county folks to use and folks that are interacting with the county. I don't really see an issue with gifting of public funds at all.
So you're okay with moving forward on that as it comes around?
Yeah, I am, yes.
I feel like it would be covered under the protections for the poor and infirm.
Yeah, me too. All right, thank you, Tim. That's what we're gonna do. So, Your Honor, we're gonna go ahead and try to get those sent over to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Can you get hold of Ross and see if we've got some over there that we can send over as well?
Yeah, no, that's not tier one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the juries aren't starting yet
Right.
anyway.
Right.
So I think
And we can do
it's when the
starter
juries
supply.
start. So if they start having jury trials in June,
Right.
then that's when they're gonna need them, right, Amber?
Right now, the Supreme Court has said jury trials would start probably they're saying not until July 6th.
Wow.
But we are thinking that possibly in June, there would be some potentially civil non-jury trials or dependency non-jury trials. That's a possibility in June. And that would be some people in the courtroom.
So that's
primarily,
really-
though, our request for masks is for the jury trial, but we're told right now from the Supreme Court those will not start until July.
Okay.
But it still would be good to have them for any type of personal interaction you may have with the public. And if Wes is willing to donate those over to you, I really think we should take advantage of that situation and bring it up to your office.
Yes, I would like that, thank you.
And I think during this time, we also have to track where they're going so that we can, so that when we get audited, we've got a flow chart. So Wes, if you could check with Tammy out at DEM and let her know, that would be cool. Right?
If you're still there, Wes.
If not,
Are
we'll
these
have
the
Tammy.
same- is it
We'll
the
have
same as
Tammy.
the ones that HR, are we talking about
Those are the HR masks.
the ones that HR provided?
So
I
those are
believe
not tracked.
those were provided by HR.
And those are the ones that Wes was offering
cloth
up.
ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those did cost.
Yeah, that's
I
a
think
different.
They were $8 a mask, I think.
Oh.
Is that right? Yeah. Amber, we'll discuss it and get right back to
Yeah,
you,
what-
along with
Okay.
Tim, and we'll get
We'll try-
DM on this too.
We'll try and figure a way to get you some of those other types of masks. These other cloth ones wouldn't work for what you're doing anyway, because who's gonna wash them?
You're thinking surgical ones.
Yeah.
This is Jim.
Yeah.
Your Honor, we haven't talked about this, but, we could utilize the washing machines over detention and come up with something if we needed to.
Yeah, the liability with staff by giving them something that has been, that we are.
Let's discuss this
Yeah.
a little bit longer. And so we have until June?
We have some time, I'm not thinking, clearly this is just an educated guess on my part, because I don't know what phase we'll be in June. I mean, well, remember what the governor had said, he says he's gonna do this, but all of a sudden, if we have this spike, who knows what's gonna happen?
Right.
So, we're guessing probably June for doing the non-jury trials.
Okay.
So what I would need is an estimated burn rate.
And that would be.
And thank you, Jim, for the request to use the facilities. The trials that would be pressing, of course, would be the Tennessee's. They have a priority.
And Ross, we'll figure something out. But
Okay.
they're gonna want to come in by their own.
And Tim too. Well, and I want to hear back from the governor's office as also, because there may be something out there that we're not looking at,
Okay.
where we can provide those masks.
Okay, I appreciate the involvement of everybody here to try to make this happen. Thank you.
Yeah, great team, right?
Yes.
And you need to establish the funding of these masks, because it's gonna be ongoing, that's what
Right.
we talked about.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's 67 million coming in, but it's all for tier 1.
Yeah.
We can order ourselves right now, 50 masks for $25. They would come in, June 18th.
The surgical.
Yeah, surgical.
Yeah, Tammy's got a good supply source too.
Yeah, as long, well, we should be ordering them
Oh, we are.
soon
So-
enough to where we have enough to do this.
Yeah.
Ridgeline, or Ridge Motorsports has a great contact for masks.
Oh, okay.
So we'll run that down.
Okay.
But this comes out of 50 cents a piece, so
Yeah.
it should come underneath our level.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Does anybody have anything else?
We're gonna talk about the budget line.
Yeah. Anybody have questions about the budget letter? No? So we're good? All right. Yeah.
Have a great day, everybody.
All right, thank you, guys. Don't go away, Frank.
I was gonna say, is Frank gonna stay on this one?
Yeah.
I'm gonna use the restroom real quick.
Okay. Should we, is there another one for Frank?
It would be easier for this one because he didn't send it to Dawn, and this is Dawn's
Oh,
account.
oh, okay. Frank, we're gonna use the other one.
No, use this
No.
one.
Oh, no, we're gonna use this one. Stay. Stay, Frank. We're gonna take just a couple minute break.
Yeah, so will I, just for a minute.
Okay. We ready?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to our support services briefing. We'll go around the room first for introductions.
Kevin Shooty?
Jennifer Byerly.
Dave Windom.
Dean McCallum?
Randy Neville?
Aaron Trask, and then on the screen, looks like we have the sheriff's office, maybe? Frank?
Yep.
Patsy? Kelly? Dave, who's in the room, and Wes, maybe? All right, Frank, go
Well,
for
thank
it.
you, commissioners. Our first item, Jennifer, if you would, is our April financial statements.
Yes, so we have the April financial statements, starting with the revenue on page 2. We are at 34.
Oh, why don't somebody go take car 150?
Kelly, we can hear you.
Okay.
So for current expense, we're at 34% of our budgeted total revenue at through April of $12,946,000. And last year at this time we were at 36% of our budgeted revenue. But we've actually collected just slightly more this year than we did last year. We budgeted about $2.5 million more in revenue this year. So this year we're at 34% for current expense. Last year we were at 36%. So
Question on that, so currently right now, the ones where we're short, I'm first of all surprised that we're this close. I know we have a lag time, but still I expected to have seen it by now. I'm looking at some shortfalls at indirect payment and clerk's office, sheriff's office, and I think those are the ones that are really big, maybe Mr. Court. Would you know what those are? Is it something that is actually effective because of COVID, or is it just a timing issue?
well, definitely not on the indirect payments. Our total indirect payments for the internal indirects were slightly lower this year than they were last year for the budget. So that's mainly why they're lower, the indirect payments. And then the others, the assessor, I mean, theirs is so minimal. Is that one that you brought up? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was bringing up the big ones were clerk's office is 62,000. Sheriff's office is 43.
The clerk's office, I'm not sure if that was COVID related or not. I can check on that.
Yeah, if you don't mind looking at that for us and let us know.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have decisions that we have to make at some point, we need to know what's happening, or if it's even happening. Because some of these things, if it's just, let's say the sheriff's office, they haven't received their money in for something, that's not gonna be a shortfall, it's just a timing issue.
Okay, I'll check on those things.
Or it could be, concealed pistol licenses that are,
Absolutely.
that there's a month off and they're having to be renewed anyway, so maybe
We'll come back later, yeah.
Same with the clerk's office, it could be passport.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that's what it is in the clerk's office, passport, the other issues are not gonna be given much finally when you're closed.
Yeah.
But even still, the amounts that we're talking about are not that big on any of them. The greatest one is our own, and that is the indirect payments. Other than that, the clerk's office and, we're gonna probably handle the indirect payments, right? That'll end up, in the end, it comes, because it comes from the department, it's not gonna be affected by COVID, and that's a big part of that 2% difference.
Well, I believe the indirect payments were budgeted at 1.8 million last year, and they're roughly 1.5 million this year. So that would be the majority of that difference, and definitely not COVID related there. We just have lower actual expenditures in 2018, which is what the indirects are based on.
So did we budget the same? No.
Well,
We budgeted lower, so it should, the percentage should be equal.
But there's other things in there.
If I may, the percentage last year was 29% at this time.
Yeah.
And it's only 26% this year.
Yeah.
So it's only a difference.
Yeah.
The big difference is that we budgeted overall $2 million, a smaller number.
For the total index.
Yeah, again, I'm just looking at the bottom line of 34% compared to 36% and figuring out where that money is. So we know if it's affected us yet with the COVID. It doesn't look like it is, because that 150 is gonna be made up, if we budget it, it'll be made up eventually through the year. It's not because of the issues we're
Right,
facing.
I think the big thing, COVID related this time is property tax. It won't affect sales tax yet. You know, we won't see that for a couple of months and several other things in here as well. So moving on to the revenue detail for the treasurer's office. We have for the grand total through April, 9.4 million. And this time last year, we were at 9.5. So overall, you know, the collections are not too much lower, although, you know, the property tax, we had budgeted for the 1% increase, so the fact that we're lower, you know, we're a couple $100,000 lower than we were at this point last year, and that's right in line with, the treasurer had said that, about $1 million in property tax was applied for to be delayed.
Plus you have a large amount. I know because I had several phone calls from people, not one I probably had maybe, I think I had at least 4 where people were concerned because their checks came back. So if I get 4 calls, that means there's 40 or 50 or a heck of a lot more than 4.
Yes, she did say that there was a problem with the mail, something that happened in Tacoma at the processing center.
It showed both addresses in the box, and so they're sort of went back to mom. Basically, you didn't know what to do.
Wow. Yeah, and the property tax, the $1 million that's okay to be delayed, about 120,000 of that was current expense related. So, anyway, and then the fact that not all of it was received as of April 30th, so we'll see more of that in May, the property tax receiving.
So the million is taxing districts plural, about 120,000 current.
Current expense, yes, and about 90-some thousand of that is road property tax related. So,
Which will again eventually come in. It's not going to not come in.
yeah, so April was not a hard hit on the property tax. October could be harder hit, and that's what we're anticipating is that October will be harder hit than April.
Are you guys discussing a percentage or number that you're thinking?
Not at this point. But I'm sure we'll be looking at that. It's just so hard to predict because nobody knows the impact. So anyway, the sales tax is actually at 1.9 million, and last year we were at 1.7. So we're actually doing better so far through April on sales tax than we were last year. So that's good. We'll see how that continues to change as well. Any other questions on the revenue? Moving on to the expenditures. This year we are at 11.799 million, at 31%. At 31% of our budgeted expenditures, so 38 million. And last year this time our budgeted expenditures were 35.6 million, and the total expended was 10.7 million, so we were at 30% of the total expended. So we're pretty well in line, slightly over last year at this point. Any questions on the expenditures?
If I may add to that, if you look at the bottom line, transfers out to other funds.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
So far, we've transferred out 68%. Last year, we only transferred out 10%. So a material number of that 1% difference, the 31 versus the overall 30 from last year, comes predominantly from that number. And since that's a fixed number, over time, that's all we're going to transfer out.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much in line with where we were last year. if you exclude those dollars.
That's what I thought, which is good. Well, kind of. Except for you would hope that we have less going on.
It's good for
Cut less going out, but at the same time, there should be also a benefit on that, when I'm thinking about it right now though, because some of that money that we've expended should be able to get refunded to us through the COVID-19.
That's correct.
And so we're gonna be in better shape with our revenue at the end and our expenditures, if we can collect quite a chunk.
Yeah, and hopefully we can do that. I mean, if we're collecting from the CARES Act or the FEMA money, then we're not probably billing out some of the other, grants that we have budgeted. So there may be revenue that we're not seeing, for that we may see for the CARES Act or the FEMA. So we probably won't get a ton more or even any more in through, the FEMA or CARES.
Well, we need to find a way to get that. It's there. We need to find a way.
Yeah, we're working on it.
The CARES Act is going to be reimbursable, so any money that we get, we have to spend in order to get it back.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about for this. The bottom line should change with that. If we get some of that money back, that we're so close, it actually puts us in a positive, not the 1% negative.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, so moving on to the specific revenue streams comparison on page 6. We have the community development revenue, actually through April is at $670,000, and last year was at $584. So we're well above where we were last year, which is surprising, I thought, with the offices being not closed, but
limited.
Limited, thank you. Yes. And then some of the other revenues, the detention is slightly lower, but I don't think that's any type of indicator of COVID. The property tax we already talked about is slightly lower. The sales tax, again, is higher. The criminal justice tax entitlements is slightly higher at $643,000 over the previous 5 years. Rural sales and use tax, which is going to fall in line with the sales tax, is slightly higher at $257,000 compared to prior years. And then the homelessness, community services homelessness prevention filings are actually higher, which I was surprised too. 230,000 compared to the previous 5 years. It's last year was 191,000, and it's continued to grow each year.
Now, that money comes from the recordings?
Yes.
And so somehow, although we're closed, we're recording more?
Yes, I guess so. I'll double check that too and see, make sure that.
Pretty counterintuitive.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, it depends on how big the lag time is too on that.
Yeah, there's a lot already in process.
Yeah, and I'm learning about that when it comes to the REIT as well. How far back, are these things reported immediately as they come in, or is there a lag time on?
I think that they are recorded during the month, but I might be wrong on that, so I'll double check that and get back to you. Because that would make sense if it was a lag time and we were higher through April, and it's actually for February, so
yeah.
Check that. The lodging tax is at $126,000, which is slightly higher than the previous 5 years.
I was gonna say, that's gotta be a lag time, because I can't understand how that one could be.
And,
but, I don't know.
Oh, the REIT is slightly lower than last year, but the previous 4 years, 15, 16, 17, and 18, it's been growing. So just slightly lower than last year through April of this year. So anyway, moving on to the sales tax detail. So far, we're at 1.922 million, and we are again 200,000 higher on collections at this point last year. So if we were to continue like this, we would get probably 6.6 million in this year, but that is.
But we know this one
most
has a lag
likely.
time. We're positive
Yes,
about
we're
that.
positive this one has a lag time, and so this will
Do we know about how many months? Is it 2 months?
It's 2 months, so we should start seeing the effects of this in June.
Okay.
And then July will be a true picture, I guess, of what we're.
All right. But at least we have a couple $100,000 up to take some of that blow. You know, again, my goal is our hope is to keep close to zero. I know that's not possible, but you know, stay within $1 million at the end. We're doing exceptionally well compared to everybody else.
Yeah. Hey, Diane, do you want to hit the channel on the TV? Thank you.
Can I disappear?
Almost.
No luck, Fred.
I showed your wife a picture of you that I took when you were frozen on the thing.
Yeah, she showed me.
Okay, on page 8, we have the 6-year financial recap. So our cash balance in the general fund is actually doing quite well at this time, which we're very lucky that that things are where they are right at this point in time. Through April, we're at 13.4 million. Last year, we were at 10.1 million. So we have at least a good cash balance to carry us through this potential storm. Again, we're at 34% of our budgeted revenues for current expense, and then 31% of our budgeted expenditures. So any questions on that? On page 9, we have the cash balances for all the other county funds. And we are at approximately 32 million at the end of April, which is an increase over the previous 5 years. On page 10, I've added a current expense and health fund, ER&R and motor pool budget to actual comparison, the budget to the actual expenditures. So we have what we did budget in ER&R expenditures for each current expense and health fund, shown in the original appropriation and revised budget columns. And then we have what we've actually expended for expenditures for ER&R and the motor pool, the enterprise fund. So far we have 103,000 approximately for motor pool expenditures, and our total budget is 658,000. So, any questions on this?
Do we have any monies that went out from that budget line to, or that is expected to go out to Public Works or ER&R to cover, because that happened so late in the transition?
The only thing that we have that's went out to ER&R, or that's expected to go out to ER&R, is the mileage vehicles, the vehicles we rent by the mile. Mm-hmm. And that's what you see in the year-to-date ER&R expended column, the $793. So we don't have anything that we're expecting to pay. We actually, from my reconciliation that is a work in progress, I'm showing that they owe us money even though we haven't paid for January and February. So
if we had that couple $100,000, we were.
Yes.
We'll do it by just leaving it there then. Instead of taking it out in cash and transfer, we'll leave it there and have it expended out from what they owe. What you're doing.
Well, no, well, yes, for January and February, yes. We're not going to pay in anything. Whether or not we let that money sit there or we cash it out will be up to you three.
Yeah, most likely we'll do that at the end then, so.
Yes.
If I could recommend, there's a couple of $100,000 that's sitting there that is the equity, current expense, and public health as. And I would recommend that we use that equity when we have to come up with the cash to upfit all of the sheriff's vehicles. If you remember, there was an outlay that was required of about $450 or $480 to upfit all of the sheriff's vehicles. Those funds can supplement what current expense will have to come forward with for upfitting those vehicles.
Frank, when are we expected to get to a position where we are selling some of those vehicles that we already have in inventory?
We'll talk about that when we get to the enterprise inventory component.
Okay.
Just a few minutes.
And that's all that I have, so.
You do an excellent job. In case we haven't told you lately, we very much appreciate you. And I love being able to read your stuff. I'm never confused when I'm done.
Oh, good.
You do a very good job.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing that we have is the second quarter budget amendments. And this is not a long list. We have 10 different requests. Most of them are supplemental requests due to additional grants coming in. So we have a total impact to the general fund in additional expenditures, $497,837. And then the other funds is $2,618,530. So of those, we have 1,500 for the supplements. We have 1,500 going to WSU for a professional services contract. The auditor has a grant for $169,510. We have the Belfair Urban Growth Area Environmental Impact Statement for $199,949. And that's one that will come out of the general fund. There's no revenue coming in to offset that, so just wanted to point that out. We have the increase to the CDBG Public Services Grant, $126,878. Community Support Services has that $505,000 grant, and that most of that is going to Fund 117, and then a very small portion of that, $20,000, is going to the Health Department. And we also have the $50,000 United Way COVID relief contract, and then Skokomish Flood Zone, $60,000 coming in from Mason Conservation District, and then Belfair, the $2 million grant to expand the sewer. So that's all we have for second quarter. So any questions or comments on any of those? Okay, great. So we'll request to set the public hearing for June 16th.
You gonna handle Ross's?
I'm sorry. The next item is the Building 10 seismic retrofit. So Kelly and I are working with the architects and the engineers to put together a proposal on retrofitting Building 10 for seismic work. The hope here is that we're going to be able to do it under, first off, the fact that we're under a declaration of emergency, as well as possibly use the funding from the CARES Act to facilitate that, as well as the roof repair, instead of using REAP dollars. So we'll see what, we have a telephone conference or a Zoom meeting tomorrow at noon to talk more in depth as to what's available and what can be used under the CARES Act. So we'll have a better idea of how that may or may not work. Last week, we talked about the Pierce County lending. Commissioner Schutte, you had directed me towards their website for some insight into how they're putting their program together. I talked to Gary Watson, I believe, is the person that's handling that. He had forwarded some documentation to me. That's why I sent that letter out to all of those that are hoping to distribute funds to businesses under the COVID relief programs. We do have to have a loan document that we have to fill out in all of those circumstances. So, in other words, even though it may be a forgivable loan under the CDBG program, we do have to create a loan that is for a term, but with 0 interest and no payments. As well as we have to follow certain restrictions and requirements and confirm that they met those requirements when we do that lending. So I will be sending more information out in the next couple of days as to how that lending can proceed. Next item is the BOE hearings via telephone. Dawn, unfortunately, is out ill today. So Diane helped me with this a little bit, but I believe that we are going to begin to start processing BOE hearings using teleconferencing in the next couple of weeks, Diane?
Yes.
She said yes. Can we also consider giving the planning commission that same opportunity coming up shortly? I'm sure eventually they're gonna have something that has to be brought to them soon.
I'll talk to them.
Thank
you. Next item, inventory, enterprise. We've got 4 vehicles that are coming to us, sheriff's vehicles, shortly. 2 of them, I believe, are here or in the process of getting here. 2 are still being, some upfitting work being done on them. The big issue had been that Ford had stopped production at all of its facilities. So most of our vehicles have been delayed about a month and a half. I just spoke with Enterprise this morning. It looks like we're going to be able to get some of our vehicles mid-July and the balance of our vehicles 2 to 3 weeks after that. But that's when we will have to turn in our vehicles to sell. So it looks like it'll be mid to the end of July before we start seeing any of our, most of our vehicles coming in.
Well, Frank, do we have to at that point? It makes, to me, it doesn't make sense to put it on the market when the market is gonna be so low, they're not gonna be able to attend the auctions. Wouldn't it make sense for us to hold off for a few months?
And that is Enterprise's recommendation as well. They're seeing the used market, the bottom falling out of that market at this point in time. So there's no reason for us to rush those vehicles onto market. We'll just need to find a space to store them.
Just real quick on that, Frank. How have we seen any increase or decrease in the time at the public safety upfitting side? I mean, has there, you know, I mean,
dramatic. It's going to be a dramatic reduction in time.
So the turnaround from us to them will be quicker?
Yes. The issue is going to end up being...
How? Just curious.
Nobody buying anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Never mind. I got answered.
The issue is going to be with SPS is we're going to get all the vehicles at the same time. Unfortunately, because this was the first order. Next year, we'll stagger it so that we don't get all of the vehicles at the same time. This year, we ended up putting an order in the day the last of the orders were accepted. So obviously, all of them will be coming at the same time. SPS can't work on 15 vehicles all at once. but they have scheduled so that they can pump 2 to 3 to 4 vehicles every 2 weeks out for us. So we'll get them in a very short timeframe. And then not all of the vehicles need upfitting. There's a large contingent for the assessor's office and for the building department that need no upfitting other than signs put on them.
It's so on the sheriff's vehicle side, the two that we have, when do you anticipate that they would be in use by our deputies?
Very shortly, if they're not already scheduled. I was hoping to speak to Jason about it directly this morning, but I haven't gotten to him yet, so I'll have a much closer timeline for you on that next week.
Okay, yeah, just let us know when you know.
We'd actually like to see it too.
Yeah.
If you can bring us by and.
We'll stand in the front, we'll social distance.
Yeah.
Yep, all right.
These first ones were these hybrid?
The first ones coming through will be the hybrids.
Yeah.
The ones that are coming through right now are undercovers. So I'm not sure we want to make it public.
I got it.
But the ones that are coming through as hybrids, we'll make sure you have a chance to review those.
Thank you.
So the next one we have is Ross's Public Assistance Grant. This is a request to put a grant on the briefing agenda. This is through FEMA for the COVID-19 response. At the moment, we don't have the dollar amount for the recovery because we're still gathering information, but we are putting a grant request into FEMA to be reimbursed for COVID-19 responses.
That was gonna be my question. So they don't have any issue with having it open-ended like that? Good.
No.
Turn in more like that. Let's just
I
keep
mean,
it.
we haven't closed the declaration either, so technically, this doesn't get finalized until we've declared an end to the declaration.
Which could be a few years.
Hopefully not,
Yeah.
but yes.
I have not yet heard a few years, that's a, yeah,
2024 for some of them.
wow.
Then the last item was the Coronavirus Relief Act funding. This is monies that came from the federal government to the states, and if you remember, any county that was less than 500,000 in citizens, the state got the funding direct and allocated, in our case, $3.8 million up to Mason County. I do know that it's going to be managed through the Department of Commerce, and I do know that it will be a reimbursable grant. A number of other questions are still open and unresolved, and hopefully tomorrow's meeting at 12 will answer a lot of those questions.
There's the
Any questions?
Mason.
Yeah, did we skip the Sand Hill, the contract with North Mason Little League?
Oh, yes, we did, and I don't have any information in my package for that. Diane, do you know?
Yeah, the question was because it was discovered that the North Mason Little League is storing stuff at Sand Hill, and apparently there was a break-in. And when we learned that in our leadership meeting, Don had asked about, is there a contract or anything to store it? And Ross said he didn't have any kind of a contract. So at the leadership, we agreed to put it on briefing to ask the board, do we want to allow storage of the North Mason Little League equipment at Sand Hill Park? And if so, we should have a contract. Much like we have a contract for the historical museum, they store stuff at the park, but we have a contract with them.
I would say yes, yes.
Yeah, I would say yes.
And I definitely, let's quarter, because I'm part of those leagues forever, but the question I have right now, though, that just popped up, if we do have a lease with them, are we still liable if their stuff gets stolen?
It probably depends on the contract, because that was part of the concern Don had asked is, who covered it. They didn't try to claim it under the county, but it is stored on county property, so that was Don's concern.
So some of the issues I want to share with you is there's always a division between the entities. If you allow one, you have to be able to allow for the others, is my belief. But the other is, I don't like the idea, even though I want to support them, of carrying liability for them. They definitely need to carry their own liability, because that stuff does get stolen. And I one time bought all of Little League stuff at a auction, at a storage auction. I bought it for $5, and only because some lady, an elderly lady, jumped in front of all of them, and they were all getting mad, saying, you know, this is Mr. Pee-wee's, and you try to take those kids' equipment, we're gonna, you know, this was the, they didn't even know it was there, I didn't know it was there, just happened to be there, so we got it for $5, everything. But that's, you know, liability is pretty big.
I would say that could be covered in the contract.
If we define a contract, then that'll be defined in the contract.
So, but there also has to be a financial amount, unless we're going to offer that up to the other entities. Now, if they allow for other entities to use that storage, because it's a storage container that they have out there, then it doesn't bother me having an open end, but just know we're gonna allow one, we need to be careful to allow for all of them, that's all I'm saying. You have soccer, and you have girls softball, you have pee-wees, you have select. Just know that that might be an issue.
Okay, we'll pursue that.
That might be something that we want to talk to the prosecutor's office about as well.
Prosecutor's on his phone. She's talking to you.
Feel free to, but I haven't been paying attention to
Yeah.
this conversation.
And in developing a contract, that'll be part of the process.
Has to, yeah.
Right.
From the prosecutor's office.
Right.
Just keep all those things in mind as we put together something, please.
Yes.
I appreciate Mike's honesty.
And that's all we have.
I do want to say, if it is going to be there, we want to have a contract.
Right.
Mhm.
And we do want to have a contract
Absolutely.
that says we're not liable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Agreed.
Please.
Yes.
So, oh, the price on the public works property? On
That's
how-
the next item.
It's under commissioner discussion.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have any information, it was told,
Well,
I got to put it on there.
and I can share some of that with you from the stuff that, the research I've done. Do you want to handle that, or do you want me to just jump in? Okay. All right, so, you know, in being contacted on this and what some of the recommendations have been and the requests from the Realtor, I contacted the Realtor first to find out if there is money that's being spent in order to market it or anything else like that, because that does make a difference. If they're spending a bunch of money to do it, then we want to make sure that they're not spending it for nothing. In doing some of the research on it, we do have it priced higher than the appraisal. The appraisal actually comes in at $2.50 a square foot. We have certain parcels priced at $3 a square foot, certain parcels priced at $2.75 a square foot, and if you buy everything together, $2.50 a square foot. With the market the way it is, none of that makes any sense. It doesn't make any sense to be above anyway, although, you know, you'd want them to buy the whole thing instead of just the road front. With everything going on in the market, I expect it'll be a couple of years before we'll get that value back up. So if we are gonna do anything, I would consider, I would like to discuss us bringing down the prices to where it's actually what the appraised value is. But I don't wanna go anything below that, because that makes no sense. I don't wanna go out for another appraisal. It makes no sense to spend that money over again, when the chances of selling on the market are not as great as they were a year ago. So, you know, holding on to it, we don't lose anything. Now, we could use the money. With everything going on, all of our departments have some jeopardy going on, and this would go directly to the Public Works. So if it did sell, we could use the money. So originally, my idea was just to keep things as it was, but after looking at the appraisal, looking at everything, my recommendation would be to consider just dropping down the prices down to the appraised value of what it was when the market was high. And if they end up buying the ones in front for that appraised value, it's still a realistic request.
So the appraised value also considers the timber.
Yeah, the appraised value considered everything that was on the properties. And it appraised it $2.50 per foot.
Yeah, I mean,
If I may add to that, Beckman's has made a recommendation that it be reduced well below that appraised value, because in his opinion, it's much less valuable than that. I can also add that Loretta's recommendation is either to leave it where it is, there's no reason to sell it today, or to simply take it off the market as well. There's no rush on her part to sell those parcels.
As for both of them, Richard Beckman's request, I can understand where he's coming from, and he may be right, but it doesn't matter, we have an appraisal. And, yeah, I have no desire myself to see us do something that's opposite of an appraisal. That's, there's certain leeways that's given us, as our attorneys will tell us, when you get to that point of getting an offer, but it's this much. And you still wanna have that ability to work it when it does come. As for taking it off the market, it makes no sense to take it off the market. It's already being marketed. If it happens, let it go. And as for staying at the price it is now, that doesn't make sense either, because we actually have it priced above appraisal. Now, when it was first put on, that made a little sense because it was a very hot market. Everybody kept telling the other commissioners at the time there was a buyer. I know there was no buyer because if there was a buyer, the offer would have already come in. You don't have to go through all our process before, a deal's only a deal when somebody's ready to change money, exchange money. But at the same time, everybody thought it wasn't, but I do know that there are entities still looking at it, so it makes no sense to take it off. But I would still support at least putting it at the price that it was appraised at.
yeah, I don't think it makes sense to take it off. Obviously can't go lower than appraised. I'm fine with that recommendation. Let's just chat with Loretta too, so she knows kind of where we're thinking when she's in a little bit. But I would be fine with moving downward closer to appraised.
And speaking of that, because you said the term moving down, we could also do it in steps.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says that we couldn't. We could drop it down and put the lowest, the ones that we consider the least valuable at 250, and the next one that are road front at 275, and then eventually bring it together.
Yeah.
So that's.
Yeah, I think there's a way to stagger it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So let me know what happens after your conversation with Loretta.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think that's all we have.
That's all that's on the agenda.
That's all you get.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Frank.
Take care.
Okay, Dave. We're gonna move on to our community services briefing. We'll go around the room for introductions.
Kevin, shoot.
Within a percentage.
Introductions?
Still not paying attention.
Introductions.
Pardon me?
What's your name?
What day is it?
Yeah.
Mike Dorsey. Dave Gardner.
Lydia Huhite.
Deidre Callen.
Dave Windom.
Randy Bedlam.
Sharon Trask.
Okay, so we only have one item, Lydia. And then I can do an update on emergency stuff if you'd like that, so.
So I was bringing for a short discussion with the commissioners about the juvenile detention mental health coverage and jail peer MAP reentry program. So the juvenile detention at the end of 2019 lost community youth services, support services for mental health work in the juvenile detention because of the change in the money going to the MC managed care organizations. And so we've been in discussions about how to pick that up and help cover that for juvenile detention. We've been talking with Olympic Health and Recovery Services, who is in the jail doing the mental health work in our main jail, to see if they would be willing to cover the juvenile detention. And we had a lot of different meetings, and yes, they are willing to do that. The position is already paid for, and they feel that they might be able to go ahead and cover the juvenile. They want to do it like a 3-month trial, see how it looks, make sure everything's well covered both in the jail and the juvenile detention, and then kind of reconsider again, talk about that. But they think it'll be okay to do it that way. And they will, so then besides that, it moves into the other jail work. So we've had Abe being a peer in the jail since December. So 5 months we've been operating a pilot program at the jail, doing MAT, medicated assisted treatment services, and trying to get that up and running and check it out, see how it's going. And actually it's going pretty well. A little slower than we thought, but we've learned a lot. Both sides have learned a lot on how to keep that operating. The one part we never entered into is doing a re-entry program, which is working with all jail participants into what kind of services they might need, whether it be mental health or substance use disorder, housing, as they exit the jail, and getting them prepared. And since we were just using ABE a few hours a week, we couldn't really cover that as well. So we've been in conversations with ORS, since they also have the new True Blood program, the mental health program that's operating in the jail. Talking with them, it might make sense because there's little space in the jail to do a lot of different meetings with different organizations, to use the same organization to share some services. So their True Blood program uses peers, mental health and substance use disorder peers, and they are actually putting a peer in there to do that. We talked with them about possibly, and I think it's a 0.5 FTE. We talked with them about maybe adding a 0.5 FTE with TST funds to make it a full position and be able to cover the re-entry piece as well and move ABE out, because the lead grant should be arriving any day and he needs to transition into doing that work with the law enforcement. So they're very amenable to that. We've been in discussions with them talking about cost and everything. So when it comes to cost, there's already been an allocation of TST funds to the jail for the past 3 years, the $150,000, which last year I discussed in fall. There was a question as to what it was being used for, whether or not it was acceptable to be used according to the law to pay for nursing services versus treatment for substance use disorder or mental health. So we worked with Chief Hansen, kind of made a little shift in the money starting in January. We've now had 1 quarter to look at it to see how that's going. And we're using a lot less money, so we're paying for their their psychiatric nurse practitioner, which is coverable under TST funding rather than just general nursing services. And we're paying for the meds that are psychiatric, as well as any substance use disorder meds, including the medicated assisted treatment meds. We're spending a lot less, so that leaves money on the table to possibly cover the peer position, so not generating any more money coming from TST, but staying within the allotment. We were trying to meet with Chief Hansen last week, but between his schedule and my being out ill, we're meeting this afternoon. So we're going to talk more in detail of making sure he's in agreement with everything before we move forward. So I had put on here approved to move to action agenda, but I don't think there's any action agenda that needs to move forward. I think we need to figure out what kind of MOU or documentation is in place with the millage funds that pays for the mental health professional that's already working at the jail, who will now possibly also cover the juvenile detention center. So we're going to work with ORS and look at that in the county and figure out, is there even, I mean, there's got to be something, but I haven't found it yet, some kind of document that says what those services are and how those are being paid for. So I just kind of wanted to bring it to your attention. This is kind of what we're thinking about. We're trying to see if Chief Hansen is also in agreement with it. The peer will take off a lot of things that the mental health professional has been already doing in there, which takes a lot of her time, like housing and things that generally a mental health professional doesn't need to use her license to do that type of work. So the peer that they're bringing in, and if we pay part of that, that will take that off of her plate, so she'll have more time to go over to the juvenile detention center and deal with things that need to be done over there. Again, because there isn't a lot of record from community youth services as to all the exact things, it was minimal that they were doing there. They want a chance to see how many assessments will there need to be at the juvenile detention, how much work will it pull away, because we don't want to deplete the jail from services at all. We actually want to add to their services over there. So anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at for the next 3 months. And then we'll let you know come back and talk with, after we talk with Chief Hansen, to make sure he's in agreement with all pieces, and he might want a little bit more funding from that 150 to go to something else in there, so we want to clarify all that with him first. But I just wanted to give you a heads up. This is kind of, we're trying to leverage positions and funding right now to use it more, especially since they have so little room in there to be able to have people in and out. If they're using the same agency, it's going to make things a lot smoother. They also added an office here in town at the 1912 building that's been working really good, and that gives more opportunity for them to stay close and still reach out to the jail and juvenile detention. Does that all make sense? Yes, any questions that you would have on that?
Sounds good.
Okay, just trying to make it all work together and be a little bit more, offer more services in the jail, even though their space is so limited. If we can offer more services to people, I think it'll be better. And then when you add on the lead, I mean, our hope is that there'll be less people going into the jail. They will be directed to ORS, who is the agency also running the lead services. So it's kind of a nice pull together that all the services are going to be shared by one agency mainly, and then supported by other mental health agencies in the community like Consejo and Northwest Resources and all of those. They're supporting us, working with us in it. No? Good?
And I'll give just a quick update since I asked last week. I did talk to the Healthcare Authority in regards to the LEAD grant. We're still on board for that. They're drawing up the contract. They were hoping to get it to us by the end of the week, but might be next week. But the money's still going to be allocated for Mason County, and we're just waiting to see the contract. So,
what's the total amount again?
$800,000 for a 16-month program. And then with the, hopefully they'll decide to re-up us.
And we'll need to do a budget amendment on that for the revenue coming in?
Yes.
Yes.
When would you expect that revenue to start coming in?
Well, a lot of it's going to be passed through us to ORS because they do the bulk of the work. So it will be until I think they've already advertised for their positions. They have people in waiting, kind of, so to speak. So it would probably take them a month or two to start billing it out.
Put this in it now.
Yeah, I mean, should check with Jennifer.
About when
because
to
we
do
just
that.
talked about a budget amendment hearing in June, and that might be the best timeline.
Right. Yeah. And the reason why is you'll have the paperwork by then. You'll have the exact number, but she can put in. We have to come out. What is it? Next week is our meeting, so we'll come out with a number, the umbrella number. So as long as we have that for an umbrella number, we can put in. We can change it if we need to at the hearing, but if we miss it,
then we're waiting until
July probably.
Or August.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we want to make sure you're able to hit the ground running and not be waiting on us to amend the budget.
Unless you were coming to us asking us for money you're not getting, and then that'd be a whole different story. We'd slow roll you to the end of the year.
I also want to just say a thank you to Abe for the work he's done the last 5 months in the jail and the jail staff for working on that program. We learned a lot, and I'm really glad kind of that we didn't have somebody else to put into that position because it helped us build a lot of relationships in the jail and with law enforcement that I think in the long run are going to be really powerful, especially with this programs. So.
I'm looking at the time because I just saw you look at the clock.
Yeah.
I can bounce and let Loretta in through Public Works, and then we can come back to the commission meeting. Would that work? Unless you have pressing questions.
We have about 9 minutes until this time.
She's right here.
We got to.
Yeah. Do you have anything that's super pressing?
Nothing super pressing.
Yeah. If you don't mind,
All right. Yeah. Let's do that.
Thank you.
You saw that glance, right?
Yeah. I was thinking some minutes.
Well, you sent out the mafia to handle it.
We left you 9 minutes.
Good morning. Okay, I will hustle. All right, so we're moving to our Public Works briefing. Quickly go around the room for introduction.
Kevin Shooting.
Abe Windom.
Loretta Swanson.
Zach Foster.
Richard Dickinson. Randy Niblin.
Peter Gallman.
Can you share your trust?
Okay, Commissioners, first up, we have just a routine update to our right-of-way acquisition procedures.
Supported. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And the next item, Richard.
We read ahead.
Exactly, moving right on.
Wow. This one's gonna be pretty good too, Richard, just hang on.
That's what I was hoping.
So present it in short form, please.
Yes, scrap metal agreement, extended for 2 years.
Supported.
All three agreements.
There is no difference we're not given any more, we're not changing anything but time, right?
That's it.
Okay.
Correct. Next item is a grant application that would commit local match. And I believe we talked about this during last briefing, and you can see before you the actual grant application. And this is for 2 rail crossings. The railroad is the lead on this, and we are simply providing match if they are successful in the grant application. Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you, commissioners. Next item is to establish a CRP number for paving on Agate Road, and this is to continue the stretch that we just recently completed. And if we're trying to target this as a late summer paver.
I'm supportive.
Okay. All right, and discussion items. We have the grinder pump purchase on here, but we actually are going to table that, and we'll bring that to the next briefing for you commissioners.
Okay.
We've got some additional details that we need to work out on that, but it's definitely being evaluated and looked at. Simply just process.
Good.
And then the next item is solid waste recycling, which we have 2 contracts that are up for renewal. And they are currently contracts with Mason County Garbage. And what we want to do is simply have a check-in today about making sure that we're going in the same direction that commissioners are wanting to. And
Does that include opening it back up for going back out? Wide open.
That would be one option. So Zach and Richard met with Mason County Garbage to get an idea of what we're looking at cost-wise, and I'll let them follow up with you on some details.
For the recycling part of it, they're talking an 80% increase to our current situation. That was their option 1 in short form. I'll keep it short on each one. The second option was 45% increase, taking away mixed paper and glass and putting that into the garbage stream.
And the third option is do away with it completely?
No, is to, we take ownership of it and market it and everything, and a 25% increase. So that, and that would say status quo with what we're doing with them now, but it would, or excuse me, not with status quo, but we would take full ownership, marketing it, everything. All they would do is haul it for us.
Provide a box.
So then option 4 is doing none of the above?
None of the above.
That's right.
So my recommendation, or what I'm asking of you guys is what she's talking about is, I think again, internalize both hauls with some capital on the front end, but cost savings to the county of $142,000 a year.
What kind of capital in the front end?
Boxes up front, just for the boxes is 150,000, and then internalizing it, going out with different options for our existing contract with Republic Services, going out and having them take the material is 90,000 for them to take the material, adding the haul. These are rough numbers for them. They can't give you hard numbers obviously without going out. But our said and done right now it's 150 for 2019. Exactly that's what it cost us for 2019. If we went with Republic with the exact same numbers, it'd be 121,000. Staying status quo, taking everything, that customers would not see it change in anything. If we don't change anything and renew that contract with them, next year's cost will be $323,000.
I definitely want to change that.
So,
my question comes back to, if it stays the same, we keep recycling or do away with it and goes back to just the regular containers. I get calls from people that over the years that are upset about having to do the recycling, especially if it's not being recycled and that stuff in landfills. And I assure them that it's in our contract that it will be recycled. That's part of the contract. If we do this and open it up, we have to make sure that it still happens. It's actually being recycled, but beforehand we'll make sure it does, right?
right, and if it goes to the way I think it should, this is internalizing both those hauls. we would internalize that through the county, and those numbers I gave you are adding an FTE on top of that. So if we internalize it and add an FTE and purchase our own boxes, this current cost would be $181,000 if we did that internally, and we pay $150 not being internal right now.
Can we
And
bring
next
this
year.
back next week? Is there a time constraint?
The contracts end in August 31st for the recycling and October 24th for the the garbage boxes.
We'll have to think about it for a week, if you guys don't mind it.
Yeah, totally. It was more just to bring it to your attention if we're going in the right direction, or.
I think you're going in the right direction. I think you're doing a heck of a job, to be honest with you.
You're not the one going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
No.
I saw those numbers and
the
about like
details-
threw me to the floor, so.
No, way to keep in front of it.
And as you said, the first is going out for an RFP. I don't think we have the time restraint for that, because I don't think they'll even let us extend it with them, because they are losing quite a bit of money on their end too as well.
Well,
But-
and the other is who,
Yeah, the market would be hard.
the market for who would respond. So we're investigating that, and then we also have to refine our capital costs.
Yeah,
because
you came up with some good
we've got some
solutions
numbers
right there
to-
to work with, better than if we'd have gone out, to be honest with you. So I think in my opinion only, the question comes down to two things. Do we just put it back into our waste stream completely, or do we internalize it? I don't see any of the other ones even being an option.
And we are looking at options to, if we internalize it, to move forward as part of that being to separate the residential and commercial at the same time, because it'll benefit both sides.
If we internalize it and the market comes back, will
We
we
get all
profit?
commodity. If we go through Republic Services,
So
we
we-
get all commodity.
Actually, I don't even have the issue anymore.
And
Because
from
we
my
can't go
knowledge.
below that mark, right?
Yeah, there's no
You
negative.
put a basement.
We can't.
Yeah,
it's
that's
built
it.
in
So
the
the only way to go is either it would be to stay at that level, which is this much difference, and have the opportunity to collect if it ever breaks loose. And it's possible that it could break loose.
They would
For
give
years,
us
it was very profitable.
all commodity back towards our bill through them. And there's no RFP because we're in a current contract with them. We just do an amendment to the contract and add it as a service to our existing contract with Republic for long haul, and they take the
Change money, I like that.
Right. Yeah, so we have FTE
I'm supportive with that,
rollout boxes.
unless you guys want
The
more time.
biggest unknown is the capital. I mean,
Right,
the
we
building,
still
have
have
to do some
We got
quite a bit of
capital
capital.
to
Maybe
refine.
everything tighten that up a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if that comes in kind of where you're thinking,
Right.
this makes a ton of sense for
Yeah,
us.
me too. So maybe we start working in that direction, just bring us the numbers and, if there's a glitch, we'll know.
Right.
So-
I mean, I have hard numbers for the boxes, totally, that from a company. I already did that, but that's huge.
Yeah, how
Great
much
job.
do we pay right now? Like 40, 50,000 just renting boxes.
I have exact numbers.
Boxes are like less than 100,000.
Well, that's just so, couldn't we,
Pay it off.
I'll bet you
That's what
anything, we could get Republic to help somewhere in there. I would think.
Fully be.
So we'll reach out on that.
Okay.
This is,
Overall.
and this is numbers without even touching our grant. So
Right.
our grant's just an extra bonus at that point for recycling.
Great job.
Great thinking on
Yeah.
that.
Appreciate you taking the time to explain things to me too.
No worries, no problem at all.
I like that Texas Twinkie, by the way.
I don't like with breading on it, I can't help it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one last item, Commissioners, we have our hearing coming up next week for amending the tip. And we did not publish a change. We have at the very top, we have the HMA overlays that says varies. And it doesn't spell out exactly where our mile posting is in the projects. And although it was advertised that way, Mike, when he talks at the hearing, will talk about what specific projects and what mile posting. So I just wanted to call that to your attention, that there may be a little difference in what was advertised versus what we're saying at the hearing.
Great.
That is,
We have two things for you real quick.
yes.
Well, I have one for you. Where are we at on Clifton Road and the center divider?
I shot a message to our inspector on that. That should be part of the paving, so within the next week or two, and striping, but I'll give you
Because
the
right now it's
exact
not,
time.
so
Yep.
I'm getting a lot of calls.
Yep.
And the next is we had a discussion about the property up there by
Yes.
Public Works.
Okay.
I've gone over the appraisal, and it's actually, the appraisal has it at $2.50 a foot. And currently we have it at $3 a foot for those in the front, and $2.75, I think it was, for the one in the back. I had it a minute ago. And then if you buy it all together, it's $2.50.
Correct.
I think, am I correct in saying that we probably want to stagger?
Stage it.
Stage it different. So what we're looking at, if you have no objection or any issue, we're looking at dropping the front to 275, which is still above the appraisal, and the back to the 250, which is appraisal. And we may consider changing that in the future again, but I don't think we want to play at all with the appraisal numbers. Why spend the money to do that?
Agreed.
Yeah. And, you know, and one of the reasons why we want to continue is there still may be a shortfall in your department where cash may be needed, and this money goes to that department. So if we can still keep this moving, and we do know there are discussions that are out there. So to drop it completely would be not beneficial to any of us.
Okay.
Did I
And
cover
then,
that?
did you still like the packaging, the further discounting of, I think it was like 25 cents square foot if you were
No.
to purchase the entire?
We didn't talk about that. 250 is what the appraisal says. 250 is what it is. Yeah. Yeah, if they come in with an offer, we're allowed a little bit of leeway, but if you get that leeway before, then there's nothing. We can't,
Right.
I don't remember what it is. It may be only 5% or something like that, but our attorneys will tell us.
Right.
Not me.
Okay, all right, thank you, Commissioners. I'll
One-
get back with Richard.
One quick item. Have we had any further conversation with the Port of Hoodsport? I know we punted on that hearing in March. Has there been any, can you circle back with?
I will.
With either Kathleen at the port or Brian, their designer, or whoever?
Yes, about what the status is.
One last thing, I was almost late this morning because our crew, whoever we have working at Johns Prairie, doesn't want to abide by that time limit that you have for stopping traffic on the highway. I would really appreciate if somebody would have just a nice little word with them about, stick to the rules.
Right.
You can only keep a road closed for so long. Just saying.
For their flaggers, as far as your delay for the flagging?
Yeah,
is that-
yeah, they decided, maybe they're moving quick, I don't know, because I was way, way back, when they finally decided to let that side go.
Reindeer Creek?
Yeah, there was only a few that came this way, so obviously it was closed just to the one side for a long time.
Right.
It just, but when they finally, I had just talked on the phone, but I got here in time, just barely, but.
Beautiful view where you're sitting there.
Yeah, it was, I was back far enough where I had a great view.
So we are moving forward to with flow control.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any updates from your meeting last week that you can share?
No,
with us?
I ended up working with Ed a little bit on that, but I didn't actually talk to him about that situation because I asked him to send it to Rob also. I want them both to weigh in, and then I'll call them and get them to try and do an action if it's necessary. There's a lot, this is my opinion, I shouldn't be saying it this way, they're not getting information there. They're literally, unlike how we work and we have direct, they don't. There's so much that was going on that they don't know of. He had a briefing that morning because he knew he was meeting with me, and the stuff that he was just finding out was surprising because I had known about it for 4, 5, even 6 months. And he was a little bit taken back. So it was a little bit of an overload when all that came up. So I'll give him a little bit of time, I'll get back to them, and we'll close that and have them close the loop. Right now, he's got to make his own issues with his staff, that he's that far behind. Because they never knew from them. Wow. So thank you for keeping us up. We don't have those issues. I mean, literally, you guys keep us well informed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, anything else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Zoom anymore, it's just Windom on it, special, okay. Yeah, special meeting, we don't need that.
Bring in the videos. Here we go.
So Commissioners, I want to confirm too, the next briefing we have scheduled is June 1. Next week we have a meeting on Tuesday and then nothing following week. Then we're into June. So are we good if you want briefings for next Monday?
Do we want to wait until we hear what the governor, what his next move will be? We can always call a special, right?
Yeah, I mean, why don't we have our regular meeting next week, brief following?
That's a holiday.
Is it Memorial? Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's coming on as quick.
Well,
Well, this has worked very well with her running filter on when it's needed and when it's not.
So if we have stuff, otherwise not?
Yeah,
Okay.
I still do the same thing. If you've got something, then I got no problem. I'd rather work, so I'm good with it, but if not.
Early Memorial Day this year, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
You can't go anywhere.
Yeah, I know, right?
Good luck on that.
Yeah, have fun at home.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to close this and go into your special meeting?
Yep, let's do.
What are we expecting quorum-wise on VOH?
It sounds like we're gonna have at least 5, so we're good.
That's good.
That's good.
So now Board of Health, or are we county still?
We're county.
We're county.
Okay.
Which is odd. I thought we went the other way, but.
I thought,
I want to give plenty of time, not knowing how briefing was going to go.
Okay. So we're gonna be approving it before
the Board of
Health.
Well, it's really kind of
We can do it.
because they are completely separate things.
Yeah, we can do a contingent on the approval of the Board of Health too. Kick the tires, let's light this thing up.
Right, right. Let us know when you're ready.
This
Or
one's
should we
not
just go
Zoom.
ahead?
This one's not Zoom. Only.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
This is you.
Wow, this is fun.
We need to rethink you.
That's what they call it.
That's kind of true. This is not fun. It's a new adventure. All right. Should we go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, we're on. All right, we're going to call this special commission meeting for Monday, May 11th, 2020. We are abiding by the governor's order and also the Attorney General's Open Public Meeting Act, OPMA, oh my goodness, guidelines. So this is to consider the adoption of a resolution approving application for the COVID-19 Phase 1 to Phase 2.
Commissioners, you did receive one email from Carol Lindahl who supports the application.
From Carol Lindahl?
Was Ken Van Buskers for the Board of Health?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so if I can run a quick brief through this. So when the governor outlined the first 10 counties that he was looking at to go forward, they came out within a few days after that, the ability for 6 other counties to put in for the variance as well. So I went ahead and put this together a little over a week ago. So this would be our application for variance to go from Phase 1 to Phase 2. We went through the governor's criteria list point by point and answered all those questions. One place where we differ just a little bit is on page 4, case calculations for release. In the governor's initial package, they looked at no cases for 3 weeks. And what I've done here is I've gone in and looked at case numbers. And if you take our case numbers for our population of the county, and I broke it down, we are at 0.38 cases per day for the whole outbreak. If we take, and I just calculated this morning, we could put this in here. If I calculate the past 21 days, we are at 0.23 cases per day of new cases. So, I mean, really well below any kind of a statistical guideline of what we would need for response. We have plenty of response available for those numbers, even with the 2 cases that we had come in back to back. So, I mean, I can make that change if you would like. I can make it with the Board of Health too, or we can just leave it as is because it's still, I think, a strong case because it looks at the whole time period, and it's still we're only at 0.38 cases per day.
But you're recommending, I think I would agree, to add that piece into this proposal? I think it's an important part of it.
Because I'll do this at one sentence. It says, as of this date, whole last 21 days, make the calculation and use that as our hard number.
Those calculations are from the CDC. That's how they...
Right, CDC recommendation was to go to 0.77 cases. South Korea at their peak was like 1.77 cases per day, so we really are at a point where at even 0.38, 0.25, that's a quarter of a case a day, well within our capability of our own staff to handle anything that comes through that. So in addition to that, if we did happen to have a spike, we do have the ability to, within our own staff, to go up to 10 investigators, and then DOH has promised a strike team. Should we have a cluster that comes in, we can request the DOH strike team.
We're perfectly positioned.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, because of time, do you mind if I make a motion? Okay, Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the resolution approving the application for COVID-19 Phase 1 to Phase 2. I'd also like to make comments.
I will second that motion.
Okay. Discussion?
Yeah, I just want to point out, I thank you for all the hard work. It's nice that we've been up in front of this thing. We're not in the perfect position to be able to get this done. We all know that, but at least by trying, we have a chance. For those that are out in the public, though, that have some concerns, I want them to know that the counties, even if this does get through and we get past, the counties do have the ability to make things more restrictive if necessary. As we go through the process, if we believe as a commission and Board of Health that there are issues or things that we would like to be stricter, if they give us the permission to go to Phase 2, we are allowed to implement those restrictions internally to help make sure everybody's kept protected. I know from our conversations, there's any commissioner here that just wants to blanketly open everything up, put everybody at risk. We want to be smart about it, but we do want to get there. We want to get it open. We want to be able to bring these people back, their livelihood and their chances of surviving this financially. And so with that being said, I'm in full support of it, and again, with the idea that we'll be able to do our best to keep people safe and change things even if we feel that it's necessary as conditions arise.
Yeah, I agree, and I appreciate your work on this, Dave, as well as Dr. Stein. I would not have been as comfortable supporting it had it not been as thoroughly vetted by our public health team as it has been. And I think that's really the critical element of this, is even though we believe we're in a position to move ahead, we do have the ability to continue to monitor, continue to do what we need to do in order to keep people safe and get our community functioning again. And a lot of that falls on Dr. Stein, and I know he's been in constant contact with both the business community and the medical community here, and is talking to his counterparts across the state and regionally, and just appreciate all the effort that has gone into this. I think it's well thought out, and it doesn't remove our own personal obligations to do what we need to do to keep our families and neighbors safe throughout this. This is continues to be a real threat, to public health statewide and across the country, and so. This isn't a green light, but it's an opportunity for us to start a phased, responsible, and safe reopening, and give our community a chance to pull out of this. So appreciate the work on it, and Dr. Stein's as well.
One clarification: so that with any sector, whether it's Phase 1 or Phase 2, they don't open until the guidelines from the state come out. So whatever industry that might be. So the first one was construction, and last week we had car washes, for example. So as we get those, that's when that sector will be poised to go forward.
That's if if we get this through and the governor does agree. Right.
Okay.
If,
yeah.
And if.
Right.
And I also, I'd just say too, I know you and Dr. Stein have been talking to leadership at DOH, talking to Secretary Weisman, have been talking to Dr. Lopi, Admiral Bono, and just really appreciate you keeping those lines of communication open. I think that's just critical to this, and understanding what's working in other places, best practices to adopt here. The one caution I have, I'll mention it here, and I'll also mention it in Board of Health. In Dr. Stein's letter, it does discuss this, quote directly from the letter, it says, "We would use our local authority to regulate the safety of businesses. As we progress through this, I'd like to have a better understanding of what that means on our side." I know there's a lot of concern, a lot of fear out there from people that there's an overreach from state and local government on these things. And so I think what we really need to be doing here as well is communicating clearly with people what contact tracing is, how important it is for them to, the best way to avoid government regulation is to self-regulate, is to be responsible in your own place of business, to be responsible in your places of worship, to have, to have those safety guidelines being adhered to is the best way to avoid, not so much us, but state enforcement, which I think is a real legitimate concern for a lot of people. So as we kind of go through this process, again, completely supportive of this, but let's communicate clearly with the community what the expectations are, and show what the limitations on those authorities are from our side, so that people know that we're not going to be kicking down their door and coming in, and it doesn't work like that.
Obviously, Commissioner, you got some of the same phone calls and stuff I did. I'm glad you brought that up, because, for anybody that is watching, that is not our intent. We are not going to be sending people to your home to force you to do anything. That's not what we do here at the county, and that's not what we're supporting. And I hope, I didn't listen, I watched part of the video afterwards. I hope that's not what the governor was saying. I really would doubt that it was.
Well, I think there's some, in times like this, the governor, when I say he, the governor, has to speak to a broad audience.
Yeah.
And in terminology that's understandable by many people. And I think when you have terminology like, we will have an army of contact tracers, it conjures an image in our mind that we're uncomfortable with, but the reality is contact tracing has been going on from the beginning of public health. It's no different than if you have a norovirus outbreak from eating shellfish, and they do the backtracking, because it's just an important part of keeping people safe, keeping businesses aware of the dangers that are out there from some of these products, and then going back to the source and shutting it off. And so contact tracing, while it might be a new term or a new concept to a lot of people because it's been so prevalent these past couple of months, has been in practice for decades and decades. And it's done by our nurses, predominantly.
We do it now.
It's done by neighbors. It's done by our neighbors here in Mason County for the most part. And I know that if the National Guard is involved in other places, they're our neighbors too, and they have a lot of respect and understanding for people's civil liberties, and there's still HIPAA and other privacy protections that are in place. And so, but I think we can help alleviate those fears, not for everyone, but for more people, if we're communicating clearly who is doing this work, how long it's been happening, why it's important, and understanding that nobody here wants to go further than the limits, that we'll accept. So,
right. I think it's important that we let everybody know that this has been a big team working on this. Dave has done so much, and Dr. Stein, I can't thank them enough, but we also have the EDC and the chambers and all of our first responders, and it takes a team, and you're a good leader. We appreciate it. Truly appreciate it. Okay, anything else? All right, so we have a motion and a second to consider the adoption of a resolution approving application for COVID-19 Phase 1 to Phase 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, move we adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.
Let the phone calls begin.
For some reason, it's not letting me pull up the Board of Health meeting link. It just only lets me get into Dawn.
and have a roll call.
Okay. All right, so,
Unfortunately, it took me this long to get in.
yeah, so, all right, so we have Peggy, so let's go with commissioners.
Kevin Schutte.
Randy Netherland?
Sharon Trask?
Okay, and those on the phone?
Scott Hilburn. Terry Davidson. Dan Stein.
Okay, Peggy, there's your crew.
Okay, so, does anybody have any comments?
We had one comment from the public.
So, Peggy, we had one comment from Ken.
Do we want to read it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I know about that one.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
worried about people coming from outside the county.
We
Okay.
have one. Where is it? We had one from Carol Lindahl. You want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. I am respectfully writing in support of Mason County's application for variance to move sooner from phase 1 into phase 2 of the governor's plan to reopen. As it appears there is a relatively low rate of COVID-19 in our county, I think any unnecessary delays in moving forward could result in further harm to both the health and economic well-being of our county. I am concerned that the longer small business are prevented from opening, the more likely it will be that some will never open their doors again. Mason County already seems to be at a social and economic disadvantage compared to other larger, more affected counties across the state. The community needs to be supported in efforts to try to recover now, especially given that there may be a need to respond to outbreaks again in the foreseeable future. I believe wise leadership, which is responsive to the needs of all of its citizens, will result not only in greater support for such leadership, but also hopefully a healthier and more united community. Thank you for your leadership and welcoming the input of citizens in this difficult decision-making process. Sincerely, Carol Lindahl.
And Madam Chair, if you don't mind, we still should read his letter into the record. Do you mind if I read that?
Oh, no, that's great.
Okay, Ken Van Buskirk also wrote in saying Mason County should carefully consider what the impact might be if we open the county too soon and have a surge in tourism with a potential surge in COVID-19 cases. History has a way of repeating itself. Thank you for all you do, Ken Van Buskirk Welfare.
Okay. So is there any comments?
Peggy, would you like me to do just a quick brief? Like a 2-minute brief on it? Okay. All right.
That would be great.
All right. So, when the governor first came out with his 10-county proposal, Mason County wasn't on that list, but over the course of the weekend just following that, they were open to receiving requests from 6 additional counties, which Mason County was one. So I took the governor's proposal for reopening the state and went line by line and addressed each one of those concerns and put together the proposal you see in front of you. The one place I did make changes was I went around the 3 weeks with no new cases and put it in a little more of a scientific basis where I look at cases per 100,000, you know, on the CDC recommendation, which is 0.77 cases per 100,000. Scale that down to Mason County, which comes out to 0.45 new cases per county, or 64,000 people. And then looked at our data over the course of the entire outbreak, which brought us in at 0.38 cases per day. But in the last, if you take the last 21 days, and I don't have this, and we talked about it at the commission this morning, so if we add another line in there that says over the past 21 days, our case count is 0.24 cases, I think it was 0.24, 0.23 or 0.24, rounded up to 0.24, cases per day in the county, which is well within our capability to do contact tracing and work with our hospital system. So that was the only change that the commissioners would like to see added to this. The process involves county commissioner approval, a letter from the health officer, a letter from the hospital, and then sign off from the Board of Health. So that's where we are at right now. This is the last of the 4 pieces, in which case I can put this together this afternoon and send it to John Weisman, Secretary of Health, and he said he would have answers for us within 3 days. Now,
That's really,
yeah, it is fast, and John has been very good to work with lately. I've been very pleased with working with DOH. As in phase one, none of the categories in phase one or phase two can reopen until the state puts out guidelines regarding that specific business sector. So like last week it was car washes and religious services. So then as we go into phase two, or get the approval to go to phase two, we will still have to wait for those state recommendations for each industry sector before we move forward with each of those sectors. Just, I wanted to make sure that was clear out there.
and I liked how Dr. Stein stated in his letter that we're not gonna just willy-nilly let anybody open up. They have to be approved first.
So we do have the ability to be more restrictive than the state, and we certainly reserve that to ourselves.
Madam Chair, you have a handout.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a quick question for Dr. Stein. Dr. Stein, appreciate everything that you've done along with the public health team on this. At our just concluded Board of County Commissioner meeting on this, I've mentioned one aspect of your letter that I had asked Dave and you to work on being a little bit more clearer on as this process unfolds, and that's in the letter you said we would use our local authority to regulate the safety of businesses, and so just wanted to make the comment here as well as I did in the other meeting that that we should be communicating clearly with the community as to what the expectations are for reopening, and kind of spelling out where our authority comes from and the limits on that authority and actions that we could take, since they may differ from what could happen at the state level. And so I just wanted to be on the record here with that as well.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, would you mind if I make a motion?
Sure.
Madam Chair, I move for the adoption of the resolution approving application for COVID-19 phase 1 to phase 2. With the addition of the provision that the commission supported earlier and that Dave Windom brought forward, of the addition of the percentages.
I'll second. The House government is very much in favor of this proposal.
Okay, any other discussion?
I have a comment. As we were talking about earlier, I wanted to point out for ourselves and for the community that we do have the authority to be stricter than the state, but not less restrictive. And I wanted to let you know that in talking with Dr. Stein, I had made clear that if something happens, because I very much appreciate, this was a hard decision for him in our discussions. I know that he was really, really fighting with himself over this one, that I will be supportive of him if something does happen that we want to be more aggressive quickly. I personally will be supportive, and at this time, they'll be able to move forward. It's going to make a big difference in our community.
I would just piggyback on that comment as well. I think my support of this is contingent very much upon the work Dr. Stein and the hospital districts have been doing to get ourselves, from a public health perspective, ready to do this. I know there's been a lot of conversation with the business community, a lot of work on the long-term care facility side, but the one other word of caution is we do have a community that ranks higher in those comorbidities, and so we do have to still remain vigilant and watchful as we roll this out. And so I would just echo Commissioner Netherland's comments on that.
Okay, are you ready for the vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so I guess that's it.
Madam Chair, move we adjourn.
For the signature,
I
do have a question because I know you want to send that today. Are all the board members okay if we just write for their signatures?
Yeah,
via
you'll have to do some
teleconference?
kind of signature for us.
Okay.
Do you want that in the form of a motion?
No, that's fine. I know through all of this, we can sign their name and then note by.
Is there anybody that objects to allowing the county to sign on their behalf?
I don't.
No, I just wanted us to be mindful of, spelling that out. If this is approved, spelling that out for the community. So something just to keep in mind and work on, as I know you will.
That's wonderful, thank you.
No, I thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Now I move we adjourn.
Second.
Yes, we're adjourned.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.